Welcome to Thoroughbred 360, insights, stories and strategy from the commercial world of thoroughbred racing with your host, Bruce Slade. Welcome to episode 22, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the weekend. Of course, the end of Sydney's Autumn Carnival. It came to an end there on Saturday, and one colt in particular had the biggest increase in commercial value, and that was Fireball winning the Gr1 Champagne Stakes. Of course, this colt was a James Harron Colt's partnership colt. He's trained by Chris Waller, of course, had the trifecta in that race. Chris just absolutely having a dominant weekend as well. Tim Clark, the jockey. But Fireball, he's a horse that, of course, he won them English Millennium. He's a horse that ran 7th in the Slipper, 3rd in the Size Produce, and, of course, got that big Gr1 Champagne Stakes win on the weekend. And, you know, he's probably taken himself to a value of somewhere in that sort of $5 to $10 million of residual value now. Of course, on top of that, you've got his racing potential going forward. Now a horse that's obviously been so effective from 1,200 meters 1,200 meters of a race like the Millennium, running 7th in the Slipper and 3rd in the Size Produce, and now winning at a mile. So he's just been, you know, a really consistent horse from 1,200 meters to a mile. So leaves lots of nice options open to him. Come the springtime, he looks like a horse. He'd be a Golden Rose horse for sure. Looks like a horse that might be a Caulfield Guineas horse. And we have seen in the past too where horses have run both those races and actually dropped back into a Coolmore over 1,200. So those are probably the three key stallion making races in the spring for Fireball, and also just an asterisk alongside. And James Harron's team do have a slot for the Everest, so Fireball might be a horse that put his hand up nice and high. If he was to win a race like the Golden Rose and win it in nice fashion, no doubt he'd be a horse that they'd be happy to run on the Everest slot. So now, of course, Campione d'Italia was the winner of the Size Produce and a huge 4th in the Golden Slipper. He finished 2nd in the Champagne. Huge run from him, and it probably just puts a nice full stop around this form being really good quality Gr1 form, given that both these horses have run consistently in all the big races all the way through. So like the form reference for the Champagne going forward for, like I say, the Golden Rose and the Caulfield Guineas going forward. But the biggest thing that I took away from Saturday sitting there was the success of the Colt syndicates, these stallion-making groups in Australia now. And now in Australia, I think it's probably underestimated how well these organised Colts groups have been. The biggest takeaway for me on Saturday with those two Colts fighting out the finish, the James Harron Silks, the Newgate China Horse Club Silks, was credit where credit's due. These Colts, organised Colts groups in Australia have been unbelievably successful. When you think about the start of this new age Colts group, probably did have its beginnings in 2016 when James Harron and Henry Field got together to bring like-minded partners in to try and buy sort of 15 to 30 of the best colts, yearling colts they could at the sales every year, put them into training and try and make commercial stallions out of them. Well, of course, in 2016, they bought Capitalist at Magic Millions. They bought Russian Revolution at English Easter and the two different entities. And from there on, it has just been tremendous success. For all the knockers of people that want to pay high prices for colts, etc., etc., if you've looked at as a commercial model, a commercial racing model, I don't see there being a more successful story than the Colts groups in the last decade. Now, of course, we'll add in there, TFI and Kiora. We'll add in there Rosemont. We'll add in there Coolmore, of course. And I'll also include Godolphin. Not that they go out to buy yearlings for that purpose, but they breed their own. Their whole model is built on breeding elite quality stock, raising it, and making stallion prospects. And if you take those core groups, the stallion making groups, and have a look at the Gr1 Sydney two-year-old races over the time span since Capitalist. So over the last 11 runnings of the Slipper, 11 runnings of the Size Produce, 11 runnings of the Champagne, that's 33 Gr1 Sydney two-year-old races. 13 of those have been won by colts from these core stallion making groups. Now, in my quick math, I've worked out that those colts groups as a whole would have about 1 in 100 of the racing population. So they have one of their colts in those groups for 100 racing in the population, yet they would have won 40 of the 100 runnings of that race. So they're going 40x better than the general population through concerted effort, focus, bringing together of resources, time and effort, and obviously using the best of the best all the way through. And wow, have they been successful? And wow, are they an important part of our commercial market here in Australia? Of course, huge supporters, particularly at the top end, the mid to top end colts with stallion pedigrees, types and profiles. And of course, so important for the top end of our game, or for where we all aspire to sell horses into that top end colts bracket, where they fit on pedigree and profile, and of course, most importantly, type. Now, as I say, we should be very grateful for these groups, not only their expertise and just their success, but when you look around the world, we are so lucky to have them. In Europe, of course, their stallion races, making races, are predominantly won by their huge, amazing, strong breed to race operations, with obviously Coolmore being an absolute standout for their strike rate. Of course, big buys at the yearling sales, but also produce and bred many of their own. And in the last 2 decades, probably Coolmore and Aidan O'Brien in Europe have just been quite an incredible force. And then, of course, in America, they do have had success in these colt stallion making syndicates too. Of course, Bob Baffert, Todd Pletcher aligned syndicates, the likes of SF Bloodstock and Starlight and that Avengers group, along with Windstar and China Horse Club, sometimes together, sometimes apart. But as a group, those teams have been very successful doing this in the US as well. But yeah, I mean, you think about our main stallion making races, it's there's never a colts group in Australia that's that far away from nailing one of those, and that's an incredible achievement given the numbers they start with. Now, of course, it takes a lot of capital. It's not for the faint-hearted, but at the same time, if you actually work out the residual values and the prize money values of these syndicates, there's a reason why they've been able to sustain. There's a reason why they've lasted over the long course. And also, I think if you have a look at how those groups treat their owners, how much fun, enjoyment they bring to the racing experience for them, as well as very classy management and very good information, and making sure horses are moved on quickly if they're not going to fit their requirements. Those tightly managed groups, when you look at it like that, if you have the means, racing within a colts group is a great way, a great dollar spend in terms of value that you get out of not only the commercial side of racing, but also the fun and enjoyment factor. Now, back to Fireball, what makes him so good? Well, obviously a very good type, bred on a good farm in Yarraman Park, bred by Mr. Michael O'Keefe. He is by Snitzel, of course. Quinella, the Group 1 on Saturday, had another couple of Group winners. What an incredible stallion Snitzel. There's probably, you probably don't appreciate these horses until you don't have them anymore. And really, he is just a classy stallion. And we are so lucky, as I've mentioned in a podcast before, to have so many of his top sons still in the wings with their runners still to come. Through his sons and his daughters, we can extract that incredible value that he brings to any racing or breeding team. But Fireball's dam side, well, I know a little bit about this. He is out of a charge forward mare who's out of a reduced choice mare who's out of a Masqué mare, so lovely blood there. Of course, his dam Advanced Party was purchased and is the second dam that Kestrel purchased last year that's actually produced a Group 1 winning 2 of the season, the other being Flamboyant Lass, who of course produced Guest House to win the Golden Slipper. So it's been a big 12 months for ourselves, which has been tremendous and tremendous for the people we work with. We were blessed to get those results, but I just thought, obviously there's a lot of luck involved here. A lot of things went our way to pull this off, given, we purchased 8 mares last year and now 2 of them are the dams are Group 1 winners. It's a huge strike rate. There's a lot of luck involved there. I did want to talk just through our system and the mindset around why we bought these mares, just might give you some clues to help you with your broodmare purchasing going forward. So let's kick off with Fireball's Dam Advanced Party. She was purchased for Ronba Pty Limited, a company owned by the Gat family, who are getting into the commercial side of breeding, really treating it like a business. She was purchased last year at the English Broodmare sale for $100,000 in foal to Morris. Now, at the time, she had an I'm Invincible that was retained by the breeder to be trained by Bryce Hayes, a colt that Bryce liked, a good type of horse, but had a couple of x-ray issues, didn't go to the sales, was going to still go into training, and they thought a bit of that horse. The mare's next foal was Fireball, who was at that stage a Snitzel yearling who had been purchased at Easter by James Harron. So we knew that horse was a good type. We had him well marked on our ratings. Was purchased by James and for his group, and was obviously given to a great trainer in Chris Waller. So we knew that horse was on the way through for the mare and a chance of adding value for her. And then finally, she had a done deal yearling foal at the stage, a weanling, that we talked to the Yarraman team about, Matt Scown, and he was a guy I trusted, and he told me that the done deal filly was a very good sort, and as it proved, he was dead right. She went to the sale this year, made $150,000 to Danny O'Brien. So the mare had her bases loaded in the fact that she had a lot of nice foals in there coming through. They could add value for her. I love the fact that she was also a good running mare herself, a 2-year-old winner, got up and running early, looked a 2-year-old, looked sharp in her type, and of course had that genetic strength. So all those boxes ticked. The one box she probably didn't tick was, close-up black type. There was probably a generation away from black type there, which is something that, we were happy to forgive, given there was the discount at the price, and we purchased her for $100,000 in foal to Morris, whose service fee made up half that value. So she was really a 50-grand mare, let's say. In foal to Morris, who I thought at the time was, through recency bias commercially, had slowed her up in terms of what the mare could make. I thought Morris going forward with, having missed a year with COVID, etc., he's going to have more and more runners and get more commercial again. So I like that play for the Gat family, and of course, just dreams came true when she's now the dam of a Group 1 winner at just her second foal. Flamboyant Lass, very much the same thing. Knew she threw types, knew this mare really well. Actually involved in buying her when I worked for Gay initially, when I first came over to Australia in that 2010-2015 period. She was a fast running mare, of course, ran in a Blue Diamond, placed in all those slipper lead ups. Beautiful type, by a good stallion in Stratum from a great family that the likes of Ron Gilbert and Gr1 have built over time. Also knew that she threw great foals. Obviously took a particular interest in her foals when they went to the yearling sales, and knew they were good types. They always made good money, and they all could run a bit. They all had a lot of speed, a lot of toe. And of course then knew that she had a Home Affairs horse that we marked very highly at the yearling sales, who was purchased by Mick Price, in the oven, getting baked hopefully to add to the mare's record. Now, Flamboyant Lass was a mare that we purchased in conjunction with Jim Clark. So Jim and I obviously had a fair bit to do in the Storm Boy dealings together. Jim was acting on behalf of the owners. Of course, I had involvement in buying him as a yearling with Gay and Adrian. And we bought a mare together to centre Storm Boy, and she was the mare we bought based on her history and all those positive things I talked about before. Bought her online for $47,500. So in retrospect, great buying, of course. At the time, we were just working off buying nice mares that could leave commercial types and that were good running mares themselves. So hopefully that helps you in your broodmare buying endeavours. Of course, both those mares, Fireball's Dam and Guest House's Dam, will be offered at the Chairman's Sale. They were actually both entered in that sale before they produced the Group 1 winners, but had Group 1 or Millennium winner at the time, Fireball, and Guest House was Blue Diamond Place. Now, why sell those mares now, 12 months later? Well, as I mentioned before, the Gat family with Advanced Party are really trying to be a profitable breeding entity, and this is a great way to get their books right in the black, nice and early in the piece. And from myself and Jim's perspective with Flamboyant Lass, well, we're getting older with young families. We're getting older. We've got young families, we've got school fees, and we've got mortgages. And hence it makes a lot more sense for us to be trading mares at that value than holding them and taking the risk on ourselves. And hence it makes a lot more sense for Jim and I to be trading rather than holding at this point in time. The second biggest result from a commercial point of view on the weekend came through Beiwacht, who was back in the Group 1 winners enclosure there after the all-age stakes. Big win for him in terms of his profile now as he goes to stud, whether it be this year or whether they choose to race him on. But he was a really strong performance. Of course, we know Randwick played very leaderish there on Saturday, but by the stage that the all-age was run at race 9, everyone knew where the fast lane is. Everyone knew where you wanted to be. It was a proper Group 1 field full of Group 1 winners, top class horses at all age levels. Hence, it's called the all-aged, which is, I think, a brilliant end to the Autumn Carnival. But knowing all that, no one could beat Beiwacht in terms of speed to jump lead, put himself there where he wanted to be and just control things. And that, to me, is a sign of real class. Of course, a Golden Rose winner of this horse already in track record time. Beiwacht is such an interesting stallion prospect. You know, he's obviously got a really nice racing CV, got a huge female pedigree out of a group winning Street Cry mare. And then he's by Beiwacht, who's doing a really nice job, but he's not proven yet. He wouldn't be a horse you say is a proven, successful sire. And though it's probably an element of him that can take his stallion prospects either way, or particularly stallion value in the short to mid-term either way. Because in the short term, depending on where you sit with Beiwacht, it probably reflects on where you might sit with Beiwacht. And of course, in a season or two, when Beiwacht's established himself as being either top class or decent or average or below average, well, that's going to then, of course, flow on to Beiwacht. But for the time being, on face value, you've got to say to yourself, he's got front running Group 1 speed. He can control, you know, the big horses and races through his just natural ability. He's got a huge dam side, and yeah, he's a very interesting horse. Now, whether him winning allows him to stay in training another season and they take him on, and then that allows him to, you know, retire Tentris, or whether now him winning allows him to have that, you know, sexy first crop horse in Australia and they can race Tentris on more comfortably from a commercial aspect. That's something that'll be playing out in the Godolphin headquarters over the next few days or weeks, I would say for sure. The Tentris Beiwacht sort of working in with each other. I guess they'd be trying to split them across seasons. I know, you know, they're very keen to race on in the Godolphin colours globally as well for the brand. So maybe Beiwacht is a horse that might do that now. Or maybe he's a horse that goes to stud and allows Tentris a free look at the next 12 months to race and keep building his CV, given his talent. On the 2-year-old front, the Caricatta Plate was run in at Ascot, WA. Of course, Too Darn Hot won this race. Too Darn Hot, love the stallion, had so much success with him in our own right, as I've said before. But such an interesting horse commercially. Like, so he's not a horse that everyone's wrapped their head around in terms of the market yet. You know, I think could be champion sire one day. They're versatile. They're 2-year-olds, they're 3-year-olds, they train on, etc. But you know, his median this year was 260 with his service fee being 250, and his average is 360. And now it just shows you. Now, I would asterisk out with the fact that, you know, he does have it was his lesser crop this year, and like this season with his third crop mares, it's naturally a lighter year for quality for a lot of stallions, and that probably reflects on his sale prices. But in my mind, they should still be selling for so much more. Now, of course, he had the big result at Easter, the $2.2 million Colt, which of course we had a part in purchasing alongside Watership Down and Yarraman Park. But you know, he's a stallion with the record that he's building, with the talent that he's producing. I think you're going to see more and more of him in the sales ring. I've seen plenty of him on the racetrack, but we'll be seeing more and more of him in the sales ring going forward. Home Affairs 2, great start to his stud career. A fourth stakes winner, I should say, in New Zealand on the weekend in Miss Janet, out of a Reduced Choice mare. Again, that compatibility with that Reduced, not a single doubt Snitzel line really playing out here for Home Affairs. Of course, you know, Guest House out of Strata mare who's by Reduced, Twist Tops out of Not a Single Doubt mare who's by Reduced, and this filly out of a Reduced Choice mare herself. So yeah, lovely compatibility, lovely job that Home Affairs is doing, and real interest around what he might stand for next season. Just to touch on some other big weekend results, Cosmic Force had a big weekend, a new stakes winner. Wonder Boy got back in the winner's circle. Cosmos and Taurus back in the winner's circle. Had a lovely filly, unbeaten filly, went at the Gold Coast again. And he also had Miss Janet run a huge race in the Karrakatta Plate. So big weekend for Cosmic Force, which is great to see. Also, I also want to touch on Aristobulus in Tasmania. Getting missed slightly, I'd say, by the media in terms of just an amazing job this horse is doing. 6 wins as a 2-year-old now, 2 at stakes level, 1 at Alpha Bowl, this 2-year-old by St Mark's Basilica. So look forward to seeing Aristobulus come onto the mainland and compete, because obviously a very, very classy individual. Big news from America through the week. Also, the Craven Breeze Up sale in UK. Both Breeze Up sales held up incredibly well given the international happenings in the world right now. The Breeze Up sale in England slightly down, but still some lovely results and held up really well considering the huge Middle East investment in the racing in England and Ireland and France particularly. In America, obviously less so Middle East based, but that sale was off the chart strong. 28% up, a $10.5 million yearling sold. Just a really hot sale and a really positive thing for not only our industry, but for these Breeze Up sales, the Breeze Up concept. We see it starting to gain momentum in Australia and New Zealand, and I think that's going to continue to build through Inglis Magic Millions and, of course, the Karaka Breeze Up sales as we head into October, November this year. Keep an eye out for that. Finally, what to look out for in the coming weeks, of course, so all the big stallion announcements happening, all the studs coming out with their service fees for 2026. Now, my advice here is get in early. Now, when I say get in early, I don't mean panic, but I mean if you like a horse and you think you may not be alone in that admiration for a horse, believe me, those horses are going to book out the quickest this year. Those easy, low-risk horses are going to book out fastest. I've seen it already on our own roster, announced our Newgate service fees last week. Extreme Choice, Stay Inside, Capitalist, just, horses that are easy to buy into, lovely price points, and we've been smashed with support. So if you do see a horse announced you like, get on the phone. It doesn't mean you have to book there and then. You don't have to name a mare there and then, but you can just ring up and say, hey, excuse me, whoever your point of contact is, I like that horse. I'd like to use him this year. Can you hold me a nom? And 9 times out of 10, you'll find a mare. But if you don't, just let that stud know early so that they can place it somewhere else. But get yourself in there, because I'm telling you, these stallions are going to book out the quickest. There'll be the top 10% of the stallions are going to book out like lightning, and the rest are going to just be grafting away through the year based on results, based on different factors as we move closer to the season. Hope you enjoyed the pod. Plenty of information there, plenty happening, lots of excitement as we build to these big breeding stock sales, the Wheeling and Broodmare sales. Can't wait for Magic Millions catalogue to be announced this week as well. Lots to look forward to, lots to talk about. Thanks for your interest. Have a great week, everyone. Stay positive. Have fun.